All right, today we are diving headfirst into an ancient legal puzzle that gets right to the heart of something we all still grapple with.
Think about this for a second. If you accidentally break something, are you really at fault? Or hey, what if you stumble into doing a good deed? Does that still count? Well, believe it or not, almost 2,000 years ago, legal scholars were obsessing over this exact same problem. And let me tell you, their debate is fascinating. Okay, so our investigation starts with what seems like a really simple rule. It's from this foundational text of Jewish law, the Mishnah. And on the surface, it looks straightforward. But trust me, there's a hidden contradiction in there that kicks off this entire puzzle.
So here's the rule. When it comes to the kosher slaughter of an animal, the law is pretty clear. Basically, anyone can do it. The idea is that the physical act itself is what really matters. But, like I said, there's a catch.
And of course, like with any good legal code, you've got your exceptions. And believe me, this is where it starts to get good. So the Mishnah points to 3 specific groups of people who are excluded. The main worry, as the text puts it, is that they might, well, ruin their slaughter. The thinking goes that maybe they don't have the full understanding to do the action just right. But then, there's a twist. And this right here, this is the core of the whole puzzle. If these folks are supervised, and we're just talking about someone watching them, suddenly the action is totally valid. So wait a minute, if they supposedly lack the right intent, and just having someone watch you doesn't magically give you that intent, how on earth can the act be valid? It really starts to look like maybe, just maybe, intent doesn't matter at all.
So this idea, this wild idea that intent could be completely irrelevant, is backed up by one of the most bizarre, almost unbelievable hypothetical cases I have ever come across. This is pretty much the smoking gun.
Okay, but before we jump into that, there's one key term you need to know, kavanah. It's the Hebrew word for intention, or, focused awareness. This whole debate, everything we're talking about, boils down to whether or not you need kavanah for an action to count. All right, get ready for this. Rabbi Natan lays out this totally wild scenario. A guy throws a knife, right? He's just trying to stick it in a wall. Zero intention of doing anything else. But on the way, the knife accidentally cuts an animal's throat. Then it ricochets off the wall and comes back and cuts the throat again, finishing the job perfectly. A complete, total accident. So what's the verdict? Incredibly, Rabbi Natan says the slaughter is perfectly valid, and the law actually follows his opinion on this. This looks like it settles everything, right? We have a rock-solid case of a valid action with literally zero kavanah, no intent whatsoever. So, open and shut case, right? It seems for ritual slaughter, all that matters is the physical act. Intent is out the window. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, the commentators pull out another case that flips the whole argument on its head.
Yeah, because right when we think we have a clear rule, a law from a totally different part of life comes along and just throws a wrench into the whole thing. This time it's all about a divorce document, which is called a get.
Okay, so check this out. The law says a minor can write a valid divorce document if they're supervised by an adult. But here's the crazy part. The reasoning is the complete opposite of what we saw with the slaughter case. In this situation, the supervision is supposed to supply the necessary intent. The adult is there to guide the minor to make sure they're writing it for this specific man and this specific woman.
And this is the exact problem that these medieval commentators, the Tosafot, just pounced on. I mean, how can supervision mean 2 totally different things? In one case, it proves intent is irrelevant, and in the other, it's the very thing that creates the intent. It makes absolutely no sense. And trust me, the puzzle is about to get even deeper.
Because now the commentators bring in a third and final case. It's this unique ceremony where the rules about intent just seem to go haywire, contradicting everything we've talked about so far.
This ceremony is called Halitzah. Now, the specific details don't matter as much as the legal principle at play here, which is this. For this particular act to be valid, the law explicitly requires intent. And here's the real kicker. A minor or a deaf mute can't perform it, not even if a whole court of judges is supervising and instructing them. So now we're really stuck, right? Let's recap. Slaughter seems to need no intent. A divorce document needs intent, but a supervisor can provide it. And Halitzah needs intent, but a supervisor can't provide it. What is going on? So how in the world do we untangle this mess? Well, this is where the commentators really shine. They come up with this incredibly elegant solution that somehow makes all 3 of these cases fit together, and they do it by making 2 just brilliant distinctions.
Okay, distinction number 1. They argue there are actually 2 different types of supervision. For the slaughter case, it's what we could call passive supervision.
Someone is literally just seeing that the physical mechanics are done correctly. But for the divorce document, that's active instruction. The supervisor isn't just watching. They're actively teaching and guiding the minor, telling them, hey, write this with the proper intent for this specific couple.
Now that's a huge step forward, right? But it still doesn't quite solve our Halitzah problem. I mean, a court supervising that ceremony is definitely providing active instruction. So why doesn't it work there? And that brings us to the second and final piece of this amazing puzzle. And here it is, the grand synthesis, the solution that ties it all together. It turns out it's not just about the type of supervision, it's also about the nature of the act itself. Think about it. The divorce document is super specific, right? The scribe writes the husband's name, the wife's name, their city. The physical act itself screams intent. So when a supervisor is actively instructing, that intent is just undeniable. But Halitzah, just like the act of slaughter, is a more generic physical action. The action itself doesn't automatically prove what you're intending. And because of that, the internal kavanah of the person doing it is absolutely essential. You can't just outsource it to a supervisor.
So, after all that, you might be wondering, why should we care about all this stuff? Slaughter, divorce, ancient ceremonies. What's the big deal? Well, because this super intricate legal debate reveals something really profound about how we think about human responsibility.
The big takeaway here is that there isn't one simple answer to the question, does intent matter? The real answer is, well, it depends. It depends on what the action is. It depends on the context. It depends on the kind of oversight that's happening. It's actually an incredibly sophisticated and nuanced framework for thinking about this stuff.
You know, at the end of the day, these ancient scholars weren't just looking for a simple yes or no. What they were really doing was building a whole system to help us navigate all the gray areas in life. It's all about understanding that delicate, tricky balance between what we do and what we mean to do.
And that, of course, leaves us with a huge question for our own lives, doesn't it? I mean, think about our world today. Accidental tweets, unintended consequences, all these complex systems we live in. How do we decide? When should our good intentions excuse our actions, and when are the results the only thing that really matters? It's an ancient puzzle for sure, but man, is it more relevant today than ever.